Go live. Going live. Okay. Hi everybody, and just it might take a couple seconds for the stream to catch up with us, but hi everyone, and welcome to Teen Talk episode 2 with the South Charleston Public Library. We're so glad to see you guys today. We're really excited that we have over 50 teen readers reading with us now at the library. So we appreciate that. Yes, very excited. And this week's program is all about nature and specifically about ecosystems and biology. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And just to introduce everybody, I am your host, Toby. This is my co-host.
Hi, everybody.
This is Annette. And we have our guest this week is who will be doing our little book talk with us is Miss Olivia. So she's joining us this week. Okay, so to get started, we're going to start our program with our Wall of Prizes Spotlight. So Miss Annette is going to take control here and show you a few things you can win on the Wall of Prizes this year.
Apparently they're echoing.
Oh,
Okay. I'm going to show you the English version of it. This is a discovery in its prehistoric sea creatures. And this goes along with if you picked up your craft this week, it goes along with the craft that we had for you today. So this is one of the things that you can win, and you can grow these little sea creatures, prehistoric ones. So we like that one. Also, to decorate your room, we have a lava lamp. And this is really neat. It's blue and green together, so that would be an addition to your bedroom. And this one is going to take me a second. It is a 52-key concert keyboard, so you can make your own music, and it has a mic included. So this is another one of the prizes that you could win. So just keep reading and earning those tickets.
I know we have some musically talented friends among our teenage population out there, so if you want to win one of these things or take home some new pets, be sure to do that. I'm wondering what's going on. Hold on, guys. We're here. We're getting a little bit of an echo, so let me try to make that stop. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay. Is this fixing it, Miss Leslie? Give us just a second. We're having some small technical difficulties. Yes? Did that fix it? Okay. We had two things attempting to mic at the same time. That's what happens on occasion. Okay. So this week's our interview with the pro is going to be a little different than it will be in the next few weeks, and a little different than it was last week, because we don't have someone with us physically, and we actually don't have someone joining us directly virtually this week. This week, I had the opportunity to do a phone interview with Dr. Mike Beck at the Huntington Museum of Art Conservatory, and he is a biologist. He has a PhD in biology and botany. So he will tell us a little bit about that in our interview. So I'm going to switch over to the little video interview we did. We took some shots there previously on the camera, so we've intersposed it with that and some relevant footage. So we'll share that with you. So let's get that started.
I'm excited to see the final project.
Me too. All right, so we're going to transition. All right, guys, we're here. I got opportunity this week to do an interview with Dr. Mike Beck from the Huntington Museum of Art. I'm going to have him kind of introduce himself to you and tell you a little bit about what he does, but we're really glad to have him with us this week. So, Dr. Beck, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you currently do at the museum.
Well, technically my title is the conservatory director. The conservatory is just a fancy greenhouse on the front of the conservatory, on front of the museum. And the museum itself is part art museum, and part of our mission is nature as well. So the conservatory is where we keep our live plant and animal collection, and that is what I take care of. And I'm responsible for everything from picking up dead leaves all the way up to designing educational displays and selecting what plants and animals actually live in the conservatory.
As you'll see kind of if you guys tune in later for our Field Trip Friday this week, you'll see Dr. Beck kind of leading us through his conservatory and lots of the things he does there. We're going to share some videos from that with you today because we did a phone interview, but you'll see some more of that at the end of the week as well. So the last time we spoke, Dr. Beck, you told me about a job you used to do that revolved around cloning plants or orchids specifically. Can you elaborate on plant cloning for our readers?
Well, you may be familiar with the idea of flower pollination. If you take pollen from one flower and you put it on the stigma of another flower, you'll be able to get seed production. Now, the problem is with that is that you get genetic diversity, just like brothers and sisters are different. But if you want to clone a specific organism, like a particular plant, you would have to actually take a cutting or a small piece of the old tissue and grow the plant. And the problem with growing some of these large cuttings is that it takes up a lot of space in the greenhouse. So what's being done mostly now is that you take a small piece of tissue into a laboratory, and then you get that tissue to grow, and eventually it will produce small little plantlets from that tissue, and that would actually be cloning. So if we have an orchid, for example, that say is worth $20,000, you could take a piece of that orchid and clone it and make maybe 50 copies. Usually you make thousands of copies. But if you can make a large number, then you can sell them for less than $20,000, but still recoup your money.
How did you first become interested in what you do now, and how old were you?
Well, that's an interesting question. I got interested in biology when I was about 10. I think most little boys enjoy snakes and frogs and all that sort of thing, and working with animals. But I was fortunate to be able to go to a natural history museum in Dayton, Ohio, where they had classes in the summer for kids. And I kind of attached myself to one of the instructors who had a PhD in invertebrate zoology, and I used to follow him around. I was really fascinated by all the things that he worked with. And then when I was in college, I found out about orchids and orchid seed germination and got interested in that, and from there went on to graduate school.
That's really cool.
And I guess I should point out, for anyone who is curious, I do have a PhD that's referred to as a Doctor of Philosophy. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, doctor means to teach, and philosophy means a love of learning. And you can get a PhD in a lot of different things. I mean, English literature, art, history. There are many things. So if there's someone who is interested in something very deeply and passionately, they might want to consider having that as a career goal.
If you could give your teenage self advice about preparing for the future or finding a career they're passionate about, what would you say?
Well, I think the critical thing is in your question there, the idea of following what your passion is. I think if you can follow what you're really interested in, that will help you get through all the problems you're going to face dealing with all the steps of your career. For example, I had a real struggle with French. I had to be able to translate from French research papers to get my master's degree. And so that was a hurdle for me, but I was so interested in botany and biology that I was able to struggle through, even though I really didn't like it much.
book would you recommend for someone interested in biology?
You know, I hate to admit it, but I'm not much of a reader, so I'm not sure. Probably one of the things that I liked reading the most, and I'm looking for it here on my bookshelf. I may have it at home. I think the title was Bringing Nature Home, and it was written by a researcher who studies insects, especially caterpillars, and how they affect bird populations. And his interest was in having pollinator and butterfly gardens in people's homes so that they could support a bird population. And I think it's an excellent concept about ecology. Yeah, he's a nice guy. I really enjoy listening to him talk. I heard him talk at Shawnee National Forest, and it was with the Mothapalooza group. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
It's a group of people who are really into moths, and it's the strangest meeting I had, strangest professional meeting I had ever gone to, because they're interested in looking at moths, and moths are active at night.
Huh.
So most of their meetings were like at 2:30 in the morning. If you can imagine that, they would put up these big white sheets in the forest and shine ultraviolet lights on it, and that would attract the moths.
What are your favorite activities outside of work or other career interests you've had?
As far as activities are concerned, I am an avid ballroom dancer. I enjoy waltzes and foxtrots and cha-chas and rumbas and tangos and that sort of thing. And it keeps me active.
Yeah.
And it also gives me a chance to listen to music, different types. I think those are the main things.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like Ptolemy, I enjoy gardening for insects.
That's really cool. I think it's nice to hear, because I think a lot of times when you're younger, when you see adults, you think of them only as related to their job. So I think it's nice to hear some of the interests people have outside of work. Okay.
Well, it's kind of funny because when I was in college, I was captain of the karate team.
Yeah.
For my college, and I injured my foot when I was in my 30s, and that kind of got me into ballroom dancing because I couldn't do karate anymore because I couldn't practice barefoot.
Yeah.
So it was kind of strange.
I feel like that's a really nifty hobby as well. So, a last question for today. So what's your opinion on the expression having a green thumb? And do some people really have a special talent for growing things?
Well, I guess that's kind of when I think of gardening, I think in many respects it's a skill that you kind of develop over time. And so I like to think of a green thumb as being grown on the compost of a lot of dead plants. And what I mean by that is that you kind of have to experiment and get used to plants. And if you work with them for a while, you may have a few that die, but eventually you learn how to grow them and care for them. And I think it just takes practice.
Practice and patience are important in lots of things.
Indeed.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to our readers?
Well, I've been thinking about biology and botany over these past year because of this COVID virus thing. And medical people get a lot of press. But I think it's interesting to think about some of the same kind of things that are happening in biology. There are professions of plant pathology where you deal with plant diseases. And we've talked about epidemiology in terms of this COVID virus, but people don't think about the epidemiology of diseases moving through a peach orchard, for example, or diseases on a coffee or a chocolate plantation. So it's I think it would be good for people to kind of think about what they're really interested in, what they're passionate about, and then think about the variety of professions you might be able to go into.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Beck. I so appreciate you having you on our show today.
Again, we really appreciate Dr. Beck being on our show with us. He's a delight to talk to. So if y'all get a chance to visit him out at the Huntington Museum of Art, y'all should head out there and check out the conservatory. It's seriously cool.
We've been there a few times, and we've learned something new every time. He's just an amazing individual, and he is so dedicated to his profession. We enjoy our visits down there.
And as you'll see, okay. As you'll see later this week, we have we'll have a few. We'll have our Field Trip Friday at the end of the week, which is a tour of the Huntington Museum of Art and some things from their galleries. Not everything, because we don't want to spoil a trip for you guys if you want to go later. And then also a tour of Dr. Beck's conservatory. And if you're interested in animals as well as plants, there are some axolotls and some blue spotted poison dart frogs and some orange poison dart frogs, and they have a really nifty coral saltwater tank out there too that has a few more fish than we have here at the library. So if you're interested in animals, it's pretty nifty. So, and plants, and art, you should check it out on Friday. But okay, so moving on to our book or books of the week. We have some questions for Miss Olivia. But if you didn't know, that our book for the week was Wild Ocean by Mike Dembecki, and it is available on Hoopla. So feel free to check that out when you go home. And remember, Hoopla is free with your library card. There are audiobooks, ebooks, TV shows, all of those things. If you got a starter kit with us, you got some headphones to help you listen to some of our e-resources, which we're pretty proud of. We keep a pretty big collection here at the library. Mm-hmm. So we hope you guys will go to our resources page and check that out. We have options for free music on Freegal. We have free movies on Canopy. And then, like I said, we have Hoopla and Libby are the apps, but it's WV Deli for Libby in terms of how it's managed. But that have free audiobooks and ebooks as well. So, okay, well, and I believe Miss Annette has read part of this book as well, as did I. So we'll kind of just talk to you about it. For those of you who don't know, Wild Ocean is a collection, or what we call an anthology, which is collected works that are usually short stories that are put together in a single book. That's what an anthology is, of short graphic novel style stories about endangered species all over the world. And some of them are very true kind of stories, and some are really fantastical stories, but they're all about real animals. So it's an interesting thing to kind of check out if you're at all interested in marine biology, if you're interested in learning about endangered species or anything like that. It's pretty cool. It's good. It goes through lots of different ocean creatures. It talks about sea turtles and manatees and manta rays and hammerhead sharks and all kinds of stuff. So check that out when you get the chance if you haven't already. But so the first question I guess I have for you two, I guess we'll start with Miss Olivia. What was your favorite story or animal they focused on in the book?
My favorite one, it was more of the fantastical ones, was the manatee, because of just how the art was, and the story was kind of funny.
It is a funny story. Remember, just as a little teaser, remember that manatees in mythology were often, or manatees in reality were often confused with the mythological mermaid. So there's lots of folk tales about that one, and this one has kind of a surprising ending that has to do with that. So we'll let you figure that one out. It was really fun.
I haven't gotten that far in the book, but I'll be looking forward to that.
Well, we know Miss Annette loves sea turtles.
Yes.
So how do you feel about the first story in the book, the one about the sea turtles?
Well, if you were with us last week, you know that I read Dune, and it was very very dark and everything. And so this was an enjoyment. And Miss Toby and Miss Olivia are getting me into these graphic novels, which I've never read
her
before.
by the
Yes. They
Um,
have done a little bit of that. But this one is just the scenery is, you just know that you're in an ocean just by the graphics of it. You just know that you're in an ocean. So that just amazes me. The artistry. Of course, my favorite is the turtle and all of his passengers that he acquires over his trip around the world. So I really enjoyed that part of it.
All right. If anyone's curious, my favorite is the manta ray, but that's one of my favorite sea creatures because they're huge and they jump out of the water and like cut flips, and they're really fascinating to see. When I was younger, my family used to travel down to Florida sometimes, and we would see the manta rays, and I always thought they were really cool. And that story is all about researching manta rays to learn new future technologies for vehicles and submersibles like submarines and potentially even airplanes and cars. So I thought that was really nifty. That was neat to the scientist in me. Okay, so either one of you, whoever wants to go, what story made you the most like sad for the endangered animal in it?
I haven't gotten that far into it to have a sad moment. But the whole theme of all of the entries into the book is about how they're endangered and how they're losing part of their environment and things like that. So that's the underlying sadness in the whole book.
And specifically the story of the hammerhead sharks, that one kind of was very sad to me because of just all of the actual facts of how many have died and just the percentages of like how many are left and then why they're on the extinction list.
That's a hard one.
It's a hard
That's
one.
a hard one. That one got me a little bit too. I also like the one about the whale sharks that they call angels, and it got me. So I'm like choking up thinking about it. So I recommend reading at least to there. It's really good, and the art in that one's beautiful. It's got a lot of light to it, and it's a very soft, kind of sad little story.
Yeah, and we had been talking earlier that 70 to 71% of the earth is covered by water. And that's the future of a lot of our food, and we're going to be needing to go to that. We've used a lot of our forests, we've used a lot of our farmland, so the sea is where we're going to be traveling next. So we have to be very protective of it.
Yes. So how did you guys feel about the anthology kind of format and setup of the book? Did you like having a collection of short stories, or do you prefer having one story more?
I think it just honestly depends on my mood. Sometimes I don't really want to read an entire story, so I try to find things that are like, oh, this is a cutesy story here and a different one here. I really like this book because it had many different art styles as well, and some of them were more colorful, some of them were more like abstract, but all in all, it was a really cool book.
I like anthology. For me, I like anthologies in film as well as in print because, like, there's been a series lately that has come out that's I can't think of the name right now. That's animated, and it's a different animator for every episode. I like that, and then to me, this book felt like that kind of thing. So. Yeah.
I agree with you. I like the concept of the short stories because you could, if you just have a few minutes to read, you can sit down and you could read one, and that one enticed you to go on to the next one and everything. So I really enjoy that format.
All right. Well, moving on kind of to our end of the week. But I did forget after our interview with the pro here to give you guys to let you guys know that our secret code for this week is biology with a capital B. So biology, capital B, because that's what we've talked about this week for the most part. So make sure that you guys put that in online. Also, for our last thing. So this week, our craft was to do with our biology info here. It was the snail jar. So it's an ecosystem in a jar. There's another video on our on our YouTube here where you guys can check it out. Miss Leslie's put biology over in the chat so you guys can copy it if you're watching. So this is our ecosystem in a jar. It's actually built on a system that was designed by an ecologist or a biologist named, her name is Dr. Wallstad. And there's a kind of aquarium that people set up called a Wallstad aquarium, which is what our fish Flash lives in. And it's what the pond part of our Frog's aquarium is based on. Basically, it's an aquarium that has a dirt bottom covered with a cap of stones so that the plants can grow naturally as they would in the wild. So then they can facilitate the oxygen carbon exchange and help keep the water clean. So that's what this is based on, if you guys want some extra science facts. But also, we were giving away a couple snails this week. So if you haven't gotten this yet and you want to get it, it will be about 2. You can come by, and I think we have about 6 left of the ones that we made. So if you still want them, they're still available. And then
be sure to come to the youth services so that we can get
your
snails for you.
I'd also
snails
like
and
to
plants.
mention we don't actually have snails in that specific jar.
No, there are no snails in
here.
here.
We don't shake it around.
Yes, maybe don't shake it if there are snails in it. This one does not have snails. This is our display jar
demonstration,
so that I can
Good point,
throw it
Olivia.
around. Okay, and then so you guys know for this week, this is your craft kit. It is a textile design challenge. I don't have an example for you because that's the point. Is you're supposed to come up with how to best make the thing we're going to ask you to make yourself, which is a bracelet. Make the best bracelet you can. There's lots of materials in here for you to try that. There's a crochet hook and some macrame thread and instructions to make your own loom and some duct tape and some yarn. So we're sure you can figure it out. The other thing that's in this week on a first come first serve basis, because we do not have enough for everybody, is our book of the week for next week, which is The Barcode Tattoo by Suzanne Wayne. So if you guys want to read at least a couple chapters of that before next Wednesday, that would be good, because then we can all talk about it together. Otherwise, again, thank you for coming, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for joining us. Hope you heard something that interested you today. And this is Toby signing off.
Yes, Annette, we will miss you if you're not with us next week.
And Olivia saying goodbye.
Bye, guys. All right, and stream.
Yay!
Yay!